Okay, so, I know that I was just on a pre-planned live stream earlier, and I know that I was kind of ranting about forgiveness and accountability, and I'm gonna take that stream down because I don't feel like I was approaching that the right way. And I'm just gonna be honest with you right now. I I have not I'm dealing with my own battle with forgiveness. And I feel like a lot there are a lot of things in the world that would be solved or would at least get better if we had better understandings of forgiveness, accountability, boundaries, and all this other stuff. But I can't tell you that if I'm not willing to kind of put my own neck on the line for a second. So let me tell you a little bit about what brought this subject to my mind. For those who don't know, I have had to go no contact with a lot of people in my life. And it's been very, very difficult for me to deal with. But as a result of me having to go no contact with a lot of people in my life, what has also happened is I have had to face my own demons and my own struggles and my own problems. And that's one of the reasons that the direction of my channel has changed as much as it has over the past, I would say, year and a half that I've uploaded things. Back in 2020, when all the lockdown stuff was happening, I was coming at this from a completely different angle. And that definitely showed. I was so focused on the external reality and the conspiracies and all this other crap that was going on at the time with the 3 year trash fire that we have dealt with. And I was not dealing with my own things internally as much as I should have been. I mean, I was soul searching and I was dealing with some of my own internal issues, but at the same time, I really wasn't on a level that would matter as much yet. I wasn't deep enough into, like, I was doing soul searching, but I wasn't deep enough there yet to actually be able to say something that mattered. And with the forgiveness thing and stuff that I'm dealing with now, I've really had to sit and think a lot about what forgiveness means. I've had to unfortunately part ways with a lot of people that I cared about, and many of them were close family members. And it wasn't for my lack of trying to be there for them and to deal with the things that were happening with them, but it was simply there were just certain things I couldn't have going on in my life that were going on as a result of these people. But usually what I've noticed happens. Hey Faye, thank you. But usually what I've noticed happens with um people when you have to part ways for whatever reason that if the reason is uncomfortable for a lot of people to deal with, is other people will jump in and say, "Hey, why are you cutting that person off?" And then we'll make it your job to fix things with other people. But eventually we have to realize as individuals that we can't control what other people do. All we can do is decide what can or cannot be going on in our lives. And we don't, you know, when I had to cut people out of my life earlier, it was things kind of came things kind of came to a head for me in the summer of 2022. I'd given several people, chance after chance after chance to be in my life, and I forgave and forgot, forgave and forgot, forgave and forgot, or at least I tried to do that. But you know what? Everything that you try to forget will make sure you remember. And that's the problem with our understanding of forgiveness nowadays. Is I feel like when people are pushing us to forgive toxic behavior, what they're really saying is stop setting boundaries with these people. Stop growing as a person. It's making me uncomfortable. You know, and when we hold people accountable, we ought to make sure that first we're holding ourselves accountable. Because I can get all sorts of mad about things other people are doing. But if I'm doing the same stuff, or if I'm doing crap on my own, then, you know, why does my word matter? It kind of reminds me of, the story in the Bible, or the verse in the Bible, where they talk about how we need to remove the plank from our own eyes before we can worry about the speck in our brother's eyes. So every time I find myself wanting to, every time I find myself getting angry at people, or, because that's not what we're supposed to do. I mean, we're supposed to have anger sometimes, like righteous anger, but we're not supposed to hold on to anger. And we are also not, I don't think we are supposed to just allow toxic behavior and evil in our lives. So each and every one of us needs to set boundaries with others, set boundaries with ourselves, make sure that we are always developing moral compass, and we come away from every reaction or interaction thinking about what we could be doing better. And that's what just happened earlier, because I kind of came in to that last stream that I was just doing a little wrong. I was coming in all kinds of frustrated at people's inability to be accountable, which is definitely an issue in our society. Like, there's so much harm that's done by how much we sweep things under the rug, and we all do it to some extent. I've been trying to clean out the underside of my rug. I've been pulling that rug up. I've been pulling that rug up for like a year and a half consistently. Now that I've been in, different situations that made me think about things a little bit more. And it just makes me think about where we are as a society when we have people, like, the second that things come to a head, we have people that just immediately rush to one side or the other. And most of the time, they're trying to get the victim to forgive the perpetrator. And in their mind, forgiveness is just letting it all go. And I'm actually going to go ahead. There was an article that I read in the last little thing that I did, and I'm going to read it again if this fucking Windows taskbar goes away in a reasonable amount of time. God, I hate Windows. I'm going to switch back to Linux at some point. I'm just waiting to see if something I'm going to try is going to work. I'm testing some things out, and then I'm going to, fucking get rid of Microsoft everything on my computer. Probably get rid of the Google version of Android too. I'm working on that. But yeah, I don't know. That's my thing. I think my thing is I can never I can never allow myself to I never ever want to come on this channel feeling like I'm trying to preach to people. I'm not trying to preach to people because I'm no better than anyone else that watches this channel or doesn't. It's just I'm no better than anyone. But I really do want to, revisit the definition of forgiveness here. And I'm going to pop out the chat so I can keep an eye on that while I'm, uh, well, what the fuck? I'm sorry, dudes. You're probably gonna hear me echo for a second because I'm just gonna like go through a few things that I wanted to talk about while while I'm kind of dealing with it. So I guess my question while I'm doing this is, how are things going for you guys with how do you define forgiveness, and how do you look at people being accountable? What does that mean to you? So, yeah, with that, I'm going to actually just go ahead. I'm going to pull up some things that I have for us. We're going to share screen. I really like this article by it's like you know, I'm always a little skeptical of I mean, I don't know. Maybe not as much psychology, but definitely psychiatry, but and I don't know. But what I do know is that I really like this definition. I like this first paragraph of this article. Let's talk about this. It says, "What is forgiveness?" Psychologists generally define forgiveness as a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment, ven- or vengeance toward a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness. Just as important as defining what forgiveness is, though, is understanding what forgiveness is not. Experts who study or teach forgiveness make clear that when you forgive, you do not gloss over or deny the seriousness of an offense against you. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean condoning or excusing offenses. Though forgiveness can help repair a damaged relationship, it does not obligate you to reconcile with the person who harmed you or release them from legal accountability. Now, one thing I've noticed about forgiveness and how it is generally seen by the general public, for lack of a better term, is I feel like a lot of the time when we talk about forgiveness, and we talk about forgiving, or in general, we talk about forgiving those who harm you. A lot of people, when they start talking to you about that, are coming at it from a perspective that, especially if this is family, or if this is close friends, or if this is people that you've known a long time, you'll get people that call you, or they'll like come up to you and be like, "Hey, you gotta forgive that. You gotta forgive your aunt, your uncle, your friend, your whoever." And that isn't, when they start talking about forgiveness, they talk about forgive and forget. And forgive and forget is a great thing if you can do that. But when people are basically telling you to forgive and forget, I guess the first thing that I would ask is, where's the accountability for the other person? Because another thing I've noticed is when you have friends, family, whoever telling you to forgive somebody, you know what they're not doing? They're not calling that other person and being like, "Hey, you did something fucked up and you need to be accountable to that." And if we want to be able to expect each other to forgive things, then in the more colloquial way, then we must also be expected to hold ourselves accountable for our own behavior. When we are asking for forgiveness, we should also be accountable for our own behavior. Like, we shouldn't be like, I know this is probably like a little bit of a controversial thing, but I don't even want someone, or I wouldn't want to apologize to someone or have someone apologize to me if I had um no intent to change the behavior. I think we've gone to the point where all of these things that should be deeper, forgiveness, apologies, making amends, kind of lost all their meaning because we've lost so much empathy for each other. We've lost so much of that deeper connection, that instead of actually looking at forgiveness and apologies and all that stuff, we see them more as social courtesies. When you're to the point where when you're a little kid and you do something shitty to another little kid, your mom makes you say sorry whether you mean it or not. And I don't think that that's, and now as adults, the kids that were just told that apologizing is a social courtesy sort of thing. I think they grow up to be adults and they don't know how to actually apologize. Or I notice a lot of people don't. I've had, I didn't grow up in a household where apologies were really a thing. Yeah, I was made to apologize, but I don't I wasn't ever really around people that would apologize to me when something was wrong. So I ended up actually not, even when I meant it, I, as an adult, kind of struggled with apologies. I would go to apologize to someone. Like there were some times in my younger adulthood where I might apologize to someone and I might sincerely mean it. But then I might read back the text message if I apologized over text, and I might read that back to myself and I might be like, "Oh my god, that sounds kind of flippant. I didn't mean for that to sound flippant, but to someone else that would sound flippant." So what ended up happening to me is because I was not ever really shown an example of someone being remorseful and actually apologizing, really, I kind of grew up to not really know how to apologize or how to offer like deeper connection to people, and I'm just learning that now. So now as I'm dealing with this within myself, I'm noticing the deficits in other people too. I'm noticing that, when we ask for forgiveness and we want someone to apologize and all that stuff, we never seem to want to go to the perpetrator when there's like, I don't want to say victim, like when somebody is wronged in some way. We always go to the person that's wronged with the issue. We always expect them to forgive before we expect the perpetrator to apologize or be accountable for it. And I'm actually going to go ahead and share the definition of accountable because, I don't know. I just like when I'm dealing with kind of deeper stuff like this or even just anything, I've been wanting to get into the practice of defining terms when I use them, just so that we're always on the same operating definition. You guys know exactly where I'm coming from, and what exactly we're doing. This is not coming up. So, accountability. We're going to talk about accountability now. Accountability is an assurance that an individual or organization is evaluated on its performance or behavior related to something for which it's responsible. This is not. I just realized that this definition is not that great. But basically, accountability is just being responsible. Being responsible, knowing that you're responsible for your own actions, your own words, your own thoughts. There's no like, oh, but it isn't my fault because X, Y, or Z. And I don't really think we have that in our society. I don't think that we really are holding ourselves or each other responsible collectively. Because I notice another thing that happens when you attempt to hold yourself or someone else responsible is basically other people kind of come in with the, oh, don't be hard on yourself thing. And I don't really think it's always fair. I think a lot of us do walk around with unnecessary guilt. We hold on to things that aren't really our fault. Now, I think it's important to address that too because that guilt can also make you do some crazy things that you don't want to necessarily do or that you shouldn't do or that are just completely irrational. Like, I'm not saying that it would make you hurt somebody, but I'm just saying it would make. I feel like guilt, if you're not careful, can start creeping into other aspects of your life, and it can make it very hard for you to live a good one because there's always that self sabotage or something else that comes up. And guilt is a very hard emotion, so I think we do have to be careful when we are when we do need to do soul searching or some, I guess, self criticism because it can quickly cross the line into being too hard on ourselves. But that shouldn't be everyone's first thought whenever somebody is criticizing their own actions. And I think, just in general, I think people are uncomfortable with what it feels like to look at themselves and start really searching their issues. And a lot of times, other people holding us accountable and pointing things out to ourselves, to us, is an incredibly important part of that. If I never had an uncomfortable conversation with somebody when I was doing when I do something wrong, if like I couldn't imagine what kind of a person I'd be if nobody ever told me, "Hey, you're fucking up." Whether it was true or not, it's important to have that. It's important to have some type of criticism once in a while that'll make you kind of look at yourself and be like, "Huh, I guess I am doing that." So it's important that we take things to heart when we hear something that's not favorable to ourselves, because we always, you know, whenever someone criticizes me, I always kind of know that, like, it might not be true, but it also might be true. So it's very important to take that on board. And it's important that we also encourage open communication in our relationships. And that's another thing that I'm just learning how to do. I'm just finally learning how to get to a point where I feel like I can have, open communication with somebody, because communication is also something I've never been shown. So I'm kind of learning a lot of probably things that I should have learned earlier on in my life now. And so I've been sort of looking. You can probably, if you look at my channel in the last like 2 years or so, you can probably see like a lot of the mindset shift that I've been going through over the past few years. And it's because there's always something that I've had to confront, unpleasant or pleasant or whatever. There's always something that we need to confront within ourselves, and a lot of times God puts people or things into our lives to help us do that. So, I don't know. We should always we and I don't know how to fix the issues with accountability in our society. I would just say that the first thing that we can do is teach people that it's okay to make mistakes. And I know that's probably a little bit counterintuitive, but I'm just telling you from my personal experience. There've been like sometimes when you're so afraid of making a mistake and dealing with some pushback or consequences from it, you lose a lot of valuable learning lessons. And I think that's actually, it might seem weird considering like the fact that we now live in a time where, a lot of things that happen at schools and stuff, for instance, don't really have a lot of accountability to them. I was watching some videos recently by a former teacher who was telling me that they're not allowed to punish kids in elementary schools anymore. Like, can't take away their recess, can't do anything like that. But I always wonder, like with that sort of thing, or even what they did when I was a kid, where they had like the collective punishments. You know, Bobby talked too much, therefore all of the third graders had to be without recess in that classroom or whatever. I wonder if how much of that contributes to people not really learning how to make mistakes. Like, what do you think we could do? What do you think we could do to like help with these issues in our society? How do you think we could get some accountability back? Because I honestly just think that the best way to get accountability back in our society is teaching people that it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to get frustrated. It's okay, like, it's just okay to be human. Because I honestly feel like a lot of this is a symptom of humanity being stripped away from humans. Where it's like we're simultaneously held to too high of a standard, but also we're not allowed to hold each other accountable. It's weird. It's a very dissonant thing. It's just one of many contradictions in society right now. And maybe that's another reason this is going on so much too, is because everything contradicts itself nowadays. Every news story contradicts the other news story that came out yesterday. Every words are now being given the opposite definition. Like, look at the word literally. It used to mean literally. Now it means like figuratively, but extra drama. It's like over time that word lost its meaning so much that now you have people walking around saying they're literally dying when they're completely fine, or they might have a head cold or something. Although now I guess with the whole trash fire that we lived through over the past 3 years, there probably are people who literally think they're dying every time they get a head cold. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe on some level, we just need to figure out how to counteract all the contradictions. Cause think about it, they're like we all at some point in our lives have held two contradicting beliefs, especially if you've been asleep for any amount of time in your life. There's always just stuff that contradicts itself. This world constantly contradicts itself. So I guess in order to have accountability, you have to first figure out what people are supposed to be like. People would have to first figure out what they're supposed to be accountable for. And then you have to find ways to hold people accountable. Am I making sense? Well, I think I'm probably going to wrap this up soon. But I just want to leave you with this. I think one of the reasons that I wanted to bring this up today is not only because of what's going on in my microcosm, but how much I notice it in the macrocosm. How much I notice that the definition of forgiveness is twisted into forgive and forget, and it's not about it's not about um it's not about actually forgiving, as in letting go of resentments. It's about appearing like everything's fine. Everything is about appearing like everything's fine now. And I don't know how long it's been like that. Hopefully, somebody that's watching this could tell me how long we've been in this weird reality where everything is about appearing like it's fine. We don't hold each other accountable because that would like upset the balance or rock the boat. We don't actually forgive because we need to figure out a way to let go of things fast enough to make everyone else around us comfortable. And we're always kind of in this contradictory reality where, we simultaneously can't be accountable for anything, but we also can't make any mistakes. It just really makes me think. It makes me think about, like, kind of where we're heading as a society. Is everything contradicting itself and people not being able to have meaningful relationships eventually going to be what turns us into robots? And that's going to make us more willing to give away our humanity because we are literally in a spot where we can't be human and we have to constantly, like, just act professional or act like everything's fine or smile or, you know, get in the happy photo or whatever. It just makes me think about how fake everything is. You got cousins that live all the way across the country or whatever. You don't see those cousins but maybe a couple times. If you don't see those cousins but maybe a couple times a year, or maybe you don't see them at all, you're pretty much only going to see their happiest moments on Facebook. It's just that's why we can't really have proper forgiveness. Well, not that, not Facebook itself, because Facebook is kind of a symptom of a problem. But everything is just so shallow. The way people think is shallow. Our relationships are shallow because we can't have any open communication. We can't have forgiveness. We can't have accountability. Just everything is shallow, and I don't know what to do. And I wish I had more of a, like, positive note to end this on, or to say. But except for, what I always say is that change starts from within. It starts with you. You know, if you're frustrated with the lack of openness you can have and the lack of communication, figure out. I mean, I need to do this too, and so I'm preaching. I'm talking to myself just as much as I'm talking to anybody, because I'm always complaining about how frustrating it is to not be able to have openness or at least directness in life. But in order for there to be open and direct communication, I'm just as responsible for setting that precedent. On one more, on like a side note before I leave, that's always been my biggest complaint about living in California. I thought people were full of shit in New Jersey, but they're really, really full of shit here. Like, there's no direct communication at all. You don't know how anybody feels about you around here. It's just like, you can, like, I've seen it. You can literally, like, here, and I don't know where it is where the rest of you guys are that might watch later, or people that are watching now. I don't know where the rest of you guys are, or if it's like that where you are, but, like, have you ever seen two people interact with each other and one of them walks away? And they're all like, "Bye, bye, see you later, bro. Can't wait to hang out, whatever." Da 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 da. And then one walks away, and the other one turns to you and is like, "Man, I can't stand that guy." because I've seen it happen a lot here. And it makes me really wonder where I stand with everybody else around me. Because how many people do you think when I walked away from them have been like, man, I can't stand that guy? Yeah, I don't know. I think before we can fix anything else that's going on in our world, we have to fix what's going on in our community, in our family, in our relationships, in our whatever. And I'm not really sure how to do that. I don't have the answer for that yet. But hopefully, as I continue to work on my own demons, as I always continue to do, hopefully I end up with more answers. Because I take you guys along, right along on my journey with me. Like, you guys learn with me. Some stuff that I say I've known for a long time. Some stuff I've just started to figure out myself and I stream about it because, hey, somebody else might be dealing with a similar issue. And that's just how I am. I want I want to be able to help others when I'm dealing with things myself, or I like to be able to connect with others because it's hard out here, and I don't and a lot of people you can't really have deep conversations about a lot of things with a lot of people. I don't know if I'm making any sense anymore, but I'm gonna wrap this up here, and I'm gonna take the other one down. So have a good night, guys.